European leaders are meeting in Brussels for emergency talks on transatlantic relations. They're expected to discuss how to reduce reliance on the United States for defence and trade. The meeting comes after weeks dominated by Donald Trump's threats to take control of Greenland. The US president had threatened to impose tariffs on goods from EU nations who expressed support for Greenland. He's since reversed his position after saying he'd reached a framework deal with NATO Chief Mark Rutte, though the terms of that deal are still unclear. Our correspondent Terry Schultz is at that summit in Brussels. Welcome, Terry. What can we expect?
Well, as you mentioned, EU leaders decided to go ahead and hold this emergency summit, despite the fact that there's been an apparent de-escalation between Donald Trump and Greenland and Denmark. So I would say that it's no longer a black cloud hanging over the summit, but it's only shifted to perhaps a dark gray, because of course no one really knows yet, outside the people who were in the room, what exactly is in that agreement that was achieved by Mark Rutte and Donald Trump. Now, EU leaders very much believe that one of the reasons that Trump sort of backed off his worst threats, again, military force against Greenland and 10% tariffs against those countries that agreed to come to Denmark's aid on security assistance, is because they really teed up economic retaliation, the potential of levying 93 billion euros worth of tariffs against U.S. goods, and possibly using the biggest weapon in their arsenals, the so-called anti-coercion instrument, which could have limited the access of U.S. companies to the EU market. We've heard from EU leaders on background that this, they believe, was part of the reason that we are no longer in that emergency situation, but they want to make sure to keep up the pressure on the United States, as no one is really sure what the future of this deal will be and whether they'll be facing threats again in the near future.
Terry, the Prime Minister of Greenland has just spoken about this framework deal sorted out between Donald Trump and Mark Rutte. We'll listen to a clip of that and then come back to you.
We have had representatives from Greenland and the Danish government talking to Mark Rutte just a couple of days ago. And the impression I have is that what we said there, that we have some clear red lines, was been delivered to the president, and nothing about a deal on mineral resources. And we are ready to negotiate a better partnership and so on. But sovereignty is a red line.
So, Terry, sovereignty off the table. But no one seems to know more about what's actually in this framework deal that Donald Trump and Mark Rutte have bashed out together.
That's true, and I followed the headlines coming out of the Greenlandic Prime Minister's press conference and don't feel it's so bad any longer that I couldn't share any details of that deal with you, because he said he doesn't know either. So this was very much, negotiations between these two men, not even European Union officials, much less Danish and Greenlandic officials, Mark Rutte and Donald Trump. But as the Greenlandic Prime Minister noted, they have been willing to, for example, accept more U.S. military presence on the island. The U.S. has the right to do that right now. I think they'd be willing to negotiate potentially over mineral rights. They certainly are willing to help bolster the presence against any Russian or Chinese influence. That's something that Denmark and Greenland have already been doing. So I think that everyone, both there in Nuuk, the Greenlandic capital, in Copenhagen, and here at the EU summit, are very much waiting for details on what exactly was negotiated. What had Trump coming out and saying that all of his ambitions have been achieved? Now, we do know that Mark Rutte spoke multiple times with Antonio Costa, the president of the European Council, and Costa will be briefing the EU leaders tonight on exactly what he heard and what they can expect going forward, at least as best as they can gather.
Thanks for that, Terry. DW correspondent Terry Schultz in Brussels.